Today's lesson is 2-5, and we're going to be solving for a variable. Our objectives for today are I can statements. I can solve an equation in two or more variables for one of the variables, and I can rearrange a formula to highlight a given variable. So those are the two things we should be able to do when we're finished with the video today. This is slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. You will often need to convert linear equations to this form. We commonly refer to the conversion to slope-intercept form as solving for y. In the next few examples, we will practice this conversion.
I need to write that down.
Go ahead and take a minute and write this down. Pause the video, and when you're finished,
You don't have to write the words, just write the y equals mx plus b, and the name is slope-intercept form.
Here's our first example. Go ahead and take a minute to write that down. And it says solve y plus 15 equals x for y. So they're wanting us to solve for y. They're telling us what variable they want to have by itself. So the whole point is to get the y by itself. And here, if we find y, first thing to do is locate the variable they're wanting you to solve for, and then say what's around it that needs to be moved so that it can be by itself. And here we have a plus 15 on the same side with the y, so we need to move that plus 15. So since it's positive 15 or plus 15, we're going to subtract 15 from both sides. Now on the left-hand side, we can't say 1 minus 15 or 1x minus 15 because the 15 does not have an x. So we're going to write those separately. We're going to say y equals x minus 15. Again, you cannot say 1 minus 15 is negative 14. This negative 15 does not have an x with it, so we have to just say x minus 15. And if you look, that's in y equals mx plus b. We're going to go ahead and put a 1 in front of the x to show that that is our m, because eventually we're going to use this form in order to graph. And this is going to be our slope. It's going to tell us how much to rise and how much to run. Go ahead, take a minute, make sure you have all of this work copied down. Here's number 2. It says solve x minus y equals 7 for y. So again, they're wanting us to solve for y again. They want us to get y on the side by itself. So I've located my y, it's right here. We're going to go ahead first off and put 1's in front of the x and a 1 in front of the y since there's nothing there. We're also going to add the opposite. So from the problem to this first step, I put a 1 in front of the x. I changed minus y to plus negative 1y equals 7. So again, I want to get that y right here by itself. First thing I'm going to do is subtract the 1x because I've got the 1x over here. It's a positive 1x, so I'm going to subtract it. And I'm going to write it as negative 1y equals 7 minus 1x. Again, I can't say that this is 6x because that 7 does not have an x with it. It is not a like term. Now I need to get rid of the negative 1 that's in front of the y. To get rid of negative 1, since it's right beside the y, it's being multiplied, so I'm going to divide it. And again, here we went ahead and added the opposite. Instead of minus 1x, we said plus negative 1. We divided both sides by negative 1. This just gives us 1 or it cancels. On the right-hand side, we need to divide both the 7 by negative 1 and this negative 1x by negative 1. And I've shown that using two different circles here. 7 divided by negative 1 is negative 7. Negative 1x divided by negative 1 is a positive 1x because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Now we're going to use the commutative property because this doesn't look like y equals mx plus b. These two are need to be flipped around. So we're going to use the commutative property, and we're going to put the 1x first and the negative 7 second. So again, I just flipped their order. I put the 1x or just x here plus negative 7. Or I can write that as y equals x minus 7. And again, you can put a 1 in front of that x if you want to show that that's our m. And when we go to graph, I'll have to go up 1 and over 1 for my slope. So again, our answer is y equals x minus 7. Go ahead, take a minute, make sure you have all this written down. You do not have to write down the words on the right-hand side, only the work over here.
Okay, we're going to look at this next example on paper. Give me just a minute to switch over. Okay, the problem says solve 3x minus 9y equals 18 for y. So all that's telling me is that I need to get this into slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. You should have this written on your paper. Okay, and get this problem written down. You can pause the video if you need to. So my goal here is to isolate my y. I need to get this guy by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and move my 3x to the other side of the equation. So I'm going to rewrite my problem, 3x minus 9y equals 18. I'm going to subtract my 3x on both sides. This cancels over here. Now on the other side I have 18 and negative 3x. Those are not like terms. I'm going to go ahead and bring down my negative 9y. I'm going to go ahead and bring down my equal sign. I'm going to put my negative 3x first, and then I'm going to add my 18. Again, these cannot be combined because they are not like terms. So now I'm left with my negative 9 over here beside my y. So I'm going to divide by negative 9 to cancel that out. That's going to give me y on this side. I'm going to bring down my equal sign. Now on this side, I write my problems out a little bit differently than the PowerPoint has been showing you. I divide everything in the problem by negative 9, and I write my negative 9 separately. Either way you do it, if you do it the way that we showed you on the PowerPoint where you just do the negative 9 once and you circle it, that's fine. But again, this works better for me in my mind, so this is the way that I show it being done. Negative 3 divided by negative 9 is going to give you positive 1/3 x. And then 18 divided by negative 9 is going to give you a negative 2. So we can write that by saying minus 2. And then this, if you'll see here, is in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b.
And make sure that you leave the 1/3 as a fraction and do not change that to a decimal. Anytime we're dealing with y equals mx plus b or slope, we need to have that as a fraction and not a decimal.
All right. Make sure that you've got that down before we go on, and then we're going to look at the next example on paper as well. All right. Your next problem says to solve negative 20y equals negative 5x plus 20 for y. So again, y equals mx plus b is what we're going for here. I'm going to rewrite my problem first. I have to get my y by itself. This one's already set up where there's nothing else on that side of the problem but the negative 20. So all I have to do here is divide by negative 20. So I'm going to divide everything in the problem by negative 20, which gives me, that cancels, and I have y. I'm going to bring down my equal sign. Negative 5 divided by negative 20 is positive 1/4, and don't forget your x there. And then 20 divided by negative 20 is negative 1. So I can write that as 1/4 x plus a negative 1. I can also write that as 1/4 x minus 1. And this is the proper form right here. This is how your final answer should be written. Make sure that you have both the work and the problem written down before you move forward. Resume. Go.
All right, number 5, our problem is we want to solve x minus 2y equals negative 20 for y. So I'll go ahead and rewrite that, and I put a 1 in front of my x, and I change the minus 2y to plus a negative 2y. And we need to get that y by itself or isolate it. So the first thing we need to do is move this positive 1x. Since it's a positive 1x, we're going to subtract 1x from both sides. And it's going to cancel. I'm going to bring this down as a negative 2y equals negative 1x plus negative 20. Again, I can't say negative 20 minus 1x. Those are not like terms. That negative 20 does not have an x with it, so we have to write it out separately. We write the negative 1x, and then we say plus the negative 20. Now I need to move the negative 2 so that the y is completely by itself. To move the negative 2, since it's right next to the y, it's being multiplied, so we're going to divide everything by negative 2. And again, if you want to use Ms. Fielden's way of dividing each thing by negative 2, that's just fine, or you can use what we're calling the heart method, because when we draw our two circles, it kind of looks like a heart. So when we draw the first one, it's negative 1x divided by negative 2. Negative divided by negative is a positive, so that is 1/2 x. And then we're going to divide the second term. Negative 20 divided by negative 2 is a positive 10, so plus 10. So our equation is y equals 1/2 x plus 10. We know that we're finished because that y is completely by itself. There's nothing else attached to it on the left-hand side of the equal sign. Sorry about that. Take a minute, make sure you have all of that copied down before you move on.
Don't overthink it. All right.
All right, so we've got our first I can statement or objective completed. We should be able to solve an equation in two or more variables for one of those variables, or to get it into y equals mx plus b form. Our next objective that we're going to look at is to rearrange a formula to highlight a given variable.
Okay. It's very important right here that you don't overthink these. It's not as complex as it sounds if you can just kind of wrap your mind around the fact that we're doing a math problem with letters. You should be okay. So don't overthink this and don't freak out about it. Just follow along and do the best you can at grasping this concept, because it is going to be pretty different probably than anything you've done before. When you're solving a formula for a variable, the goal is to isolate that variable, just like we've been isolating the y and y equals mx plus b. So we're looking at a formula here for area. And look at the text here. It says A equals L times W is the formula for finding the area of a rectangle, where A is the area, L is the length, and W is the width. And now it says solve A equals LW for W. So make sure that you get this number 6 written down and then your formula A equals LW. Please go ahead and write the words solve A equals LW for W. You don't have to write all this other text, but I do want you to write these words right here just so you know when you look back at this later exactly what you were doing. All right. So once you've done that, let's look at this problem here. We have A equals LW, and we're solving for W, so our goal again is to get the W by itself. In order to do that, we have to look at what's being done to the W. When we have two letters and they're touching, that means they're being multiplied. When we have to undo multiplication, that means we divide. So all we're going to do here is divide this side of the problem by L and this side of the problem by L. These L's cancel out, and now W is going to be by itself. That's all we have to do. W is by itself, A is now being divided by L, and W equals A over L is how we solve this problem. Now we have solved this equation for W. W is by itself, and W equals area divided by length. Again, just get this work copied down and the text, solve A equals LW for W before you move on. All right. The next one we're going to look at is a formula for simple interest. Formula says I equals PRT, so make sure you get number 7 written down, and I equals PRT. I equals PRT is the formula for finding simple interest, where I is the interest, P is the principal amount, R is the interest rate, and T is the time in years. It says solve I equals PRT for R. Go ahead again and make sure that you write down this text right here. You don't have to write down all the other text, but write down the text. Solve I equals PRT for R. Now, our goal is to get the R by itself. R over here is being multiplied by the P and the t. So in order to undo that multiplication, we have to divide by the p and the t. So you're going to divide this side by p and t, and because you did it on this side, you have to do it on this side. It's going to cancel out over here, leaving us with the r by itself, and I divided by pt on the other side. So we can write that either way. I divided by pt equals r, or the way that we commonly do it with the r first, r equals I over pt. We've solved that equation for r. It's that simple. Again, like I said, you really need to be careful not to overthink these things. Make sure that you have this work shown and this phrase written down before you move on to the next slide.
All right, number 8, this one's going to have two different parts to it. It says 8 is again our formula A equals LW. A equals LW is the formula for finding the area of a rectangle, where A is the area and L is the length, and W is the width. The first part, part A, says solve A equals LW for L. Again, we're going to locate that L. It's right here, and all it wants us to do is get that L by itself. So we want to get the L here by itself. And what's attached to it is the W. They're touching, which means they're being multiplied. So to move the W away from the L, we're going to divide. So we're going to divide both sides by W. The W's on the right-hand side are going to cancel. So we're going to have A over W equals L, or L equals A over W. And this means that length equals the area divided by the width. So that's part A. Part A, we've solved for L. We've gotten the L completely by itself. There we go. So that's part A. Now in part B, it says use the equation from part A to find the length of a rectangle with an area of 34 square inches and a width of 4 inches. So for the A, we're going to plug in 34 square inches because that says that that's what area is. And for the W, we're going to put in 4 inches because that's what our width is. Our width is 4 and our area is 34.
So tell them to write down A equals 34.
So make sure that you have this written down. Make sure you have A equals 34 and W equals 4. So instead of the A, we put in 34, and we always put this into our brand new formula. Do not go back up here and plug it in. Use the formula where you solved. Okay? Use this new formula from part A. Put in 34 for the A and 4 for the W and divide. And you get that the length is 8.5 inches. Make sure you also put the inches. Okay, that's our unit of measurement. Okay, we need to know that it's 8.5 inches because if you don't put anything, I could think that that was 8.5 feet, 8.5 miles, and that would be very different than 8.5 inches. So make sure that you put the inches with the 8.5. Make sure that you have all of the work over here written down, and also that you have the A equals 34 and the W equals 4 from this side. You do not have to write the words in blue. Right, number 9 says C equals pi times D. The formula C equals pi times D gives the circumference of a circle in terms of diameter. And again, diameter, if I'm looking at this circle, goes all the way from one side to the other. That's the diameter. Part A says to solve for D. So if we're looking at this, I'm going to find the D, and I want to get the D by itself. Right now the C is by itself. We want to get the D by itself. So we look to say what's attached to that D. The pi is in front of the D, and again, they're right next to each other, so that means that they are being multiplied. So we're going to divide both sides by pi. So the pi's on the right-hand side are going to cancel, and on the left-hand side, we're going to have C divided by pi. And you can see now my D is completely by itself, so I have solve part A, I solved for D. I got the D by itself. I'm just going to flip that around because that's the way we're used to looking at it. And this means that diameter equals the circumference divided by pi. So now we're going to look at part B. It says the circumference of a bowl is 18 inches. What is the bowl's diameter? Leave the symbol pi in your answer. So let's look at this. It looks like that our circumference is 18 inches. So we're going to say C equals 18 because that's our circumference. So make sure you get that written down. C equals 18. And again, we're just going to leave pi as pi. So we're just going to substitute in, instead of C, we're going to put 18 inches. And we're just going to leave it like this. Diameter equals 18 divided by pi inches. But again, make sure you put those inches in there because that's important. If not, we don't know what units of measurement we're using. So that is part B. Again, make sure you have all the work on this side written down and make sure that you have C equals 18 written as well. You do not have to write the words in blue. This one's number 10. It says D equals RT. The formula D equals RT is used to find distance where R is the rate and T is the time. So distance equals rate times time. And part A says to solve the formula D equals RT for T. Right now the D is solved for, it's by itself. They said get the T by itself. So we want to get the T by itself, so we look around the T, and there's an R, so we need to move that R so that the T is by itself. Again, the R and the T are touching, so they're being multiplied. So I'm going to divide both sides of the equation by R to get the T by itself. So the R's are going to cancel, and we have D over R equals T, or flip that around to T equals D over R. And that means that time is equal to your distance divided by your rate. Now we're going to look at part B. We want to find the time in hours that it would take Jeff to travel 26.2 miles if his average speed was 18 miles per hour. And it says round answer to the nearest hundred. So his distance is 26.2 miles and his rate is 18 miles per hour. So instead of the D, or the distance, we're going to put in 26.2, and instead of the R, we're going to put in 18. Make sure that you write that D equals 26.2 and R equals 18. Then we're just going to divide. Whenever we round that to the nearest hundred, it's approximately, and notice my equal sign went to this squiggly one, that means approximately and not exactly. It's 1.46 hours. So it's going to take us approximately 1.46 hours to go 26.2 miles if we're going at 18 miles per hour. And again, make sure you put the hours, because if you don't put hours, I don't know whether you mean it's going to take me that many minutes, that many hours, that many days. So make sure you put the correct unit of measurement, and here it is hours. Take a minute again, make sure you have all of this side copied. Make sure that you have D equals 26.2 and the R equals 18. So there's our second objective. We should be able to rearrange a formula to highlight a given variable. Do what?
Tell them that's the end of the video.
So that's the end of the video. Thank you for watching.